My husband refuses to help with our baby at night. Wake him up! Wake him up! My husband, we will call Brad, and I have been together for 2.5 years. We had our son in January. Things have been pretty great, but this had me feeling kind of annoyed. Brad is diagnosed with autism and ADHD, which can make communication between us challenging at times, but we do our best. We live in Europe, not the US. By the way, this comes from Throwaway, Boundary or Not, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. So, since Brad has autism and ADHD, he only works at 50%. The other half is covered by health insurance here on a temporary basis, and every few months he has to keep applying for more. It's stressful as we wait for him to hopefully get on a permanent coverage. Since this is so up in the air, instead of me taking a full year of maternity leave, he took a majority of the days in case his temporary health insurance is denied for some reason. Then he can keep his work schedule at 50% and still get paid on the days he is off, which means I went back to work part-time. I work from home as a private teacher. I choose my hours since my students usually live in different countries. I chose some in the afternoon when Brad is home with our son, and at nights when my students would be awake and Brad is also home. I only have one student in the evening, 11 to 11:30. Dang, that's late. Twice a week. OP said she teaches ESL to students in Asia, so that's why the time is the way it is. This is to help with some income, and we discussed this before I even went back to work. He had asked no students past midnight. So if baby is having issues sleeping, he can take care of him and hopefully get him to sleep. Well, Brad got back on a schedule where he wants to go to bed at 11 every night. We try to, but with the baby sometimes it just does not happen. Baby sometimes will stay asleep when I put him to bed. I nurse him to sleep. And sometimes he wakes up screaming. Well, last night I told Brad I had my student at 11 and I would try to have baby sleeping by then. He asked me, "What is your plan if baby wakes up?" My bedtime is 11, so hopefully you have thought of something. I've thought of you, the baby's dad.
Wow.
You can't just stay asleep when you have a newborn baby. I said, well, hopefully he stays asleep. If not, you'll just have to take care of him or put him on his playmat and entertain him. He resolutely said, bedtime's 11 o'clock and I'll go to bed. Come 11 o'clock, baby is in bed and Brad is just getting out of the shower. I guess he woke up moments after I started with my student, as when I came out of the office, he was walking around with baby. I took him, nursed him back to sleep, and went to bed also shortly after 11:30. This morning, he was a bit annoyed with me. When I tried to hug him goodbye as he was leaving to work, he did not hug me back. We always do this before he leaves, so I said, "Are you still upset with me?" He replied, "Yes, you crossed my boundary. My bedtime is 11. We discussed this. I go to bed, and anything past that is your problem to solve if baby wakes up." He left for work, and I was just thinking, what? That's not a boundary.
It's absolutely not a boundary.
You can't have a boundary for when you go to bed with a baby.
Yeah.
That's
Boundaries are like, hey, when you talk to me this way, that hurts my feelings.
My feelings. Don't talk to me like that.
It's not a boundary of being like, hey, this is my shift. I'm deciding this. I'm not going to talk to you about this. You have to freaking figure it out. Yeah. You get the night shift always.
I feel I need to have some discussion with Brad about this, but would I be the a-hole if I told him he has no more boundaries with his sleep and he's being ridiculous? And some of OP's comments, a commenter says, everyone sucks for not sorting this out before there was a baby. OP says, we did. No students past midnight and only when he's home. It was only recently he decided he wanted to go to bed at 11. And he knew my potential work schedule weeks before I even went back to work. Previously, bedtime for us was between 11:30 to midnight. He also does get his 8+ hours of sleep almost every night. Commenter says, not the a-hole. Your husband is being ridiculous. He is a father. He should act like it. Babies wake up in the night. It's not fair to expect you to take care of it all by yourself while he peacefully sleeps every night. He's a parent. He needs to parent his child. OP responds, what my mother said. If it means he has to walk around with baby to calm him, he just has to. My schedule is not a surprise either. It was something we discussed weeks before I even went back. Commenter says, not to mention the fact that you're having to return to work early after pregnancy because of financial issues caused by him only working part-time. OP says, well, the thing is, in our country in Europe, he is technically employed full-time, but due to his disabilities, he only works 50%, and the other 50% is covered by health insurance here. Yes, his work knows all of it is legal. I am not from Europe originally, so I might be explaining this badly. But if he loses the income from the health insurance, he only gets paid 50% from work. OP said in another comment they lived in Sweden. But before we get into more of them, do you have any thoughts?
I just would be so mad.
Yeah.
She just gave birth to this baby.
Yep.
Okay? It's not even, like, it's one thing that, yes, they're both parents, and they both need to parent this child. That's a whole thing in itself. But also, one of these parents, though, has to rest and recover from all of the changes that have been happening to her body for the past 9 months.
Yeah.
So it's like, girl, like, you gotta step up for your wife. You gotta.
And also, people are in the comments, in the chat, are making a great point. He gets a full 8 hours with a newborn baby.
Yeah.
I've never had a kid, but I know that literally every parent ever has, who I've talked to this about, has said that you don't get any sleep when you have a baby.
Right. That's what they all say.
This shit, that's like common knowledge. No sleep. Top voted commenter, OP says, thing is, he's great dad. He's a great dad. Just this incident is ruffling my feathers a bit because he normally is not like this. And he almost always gets his 8+ hours of uninterrupted sleep. If baby was waking him up, I could see it, but that is not the case. Commenter says, is he a great dad if he uses emotional blackmail against the mother of his child? Is he a great dad if he refuses to care for the child he helped create? I don't think so. I think maybe getting yourself to a counselor solo for perspectives from a professional may be useful too. OP says, I think you're right on me needing to see a professional on dealing with some of this. Of course, he did not let baby cry. He did take care of him, but he was annoyed with me that he even had to be awake to walk around with baby. I love my son and I need to know if I cannot be there, someone who loves him is there with him. My family is far away, so I only have my husband. Commenter says, not the a-hole. If you decide to have a child, you have to take all the 1-2s that are involved, and a perfect sleep schedule is something you lose. And why is this always men? I mean, I know why, but yet why? He's a father. Baby and the baby's needs come first. OP says, after I had baby, we were in hospital for 5 days. Baby soiled the few clothes he had, and Brad left to go home for the night. Hospital room not large enough for him to stay. And as he was getting home to bed, I called, told him baby had nothing clean anymore, and he drove at 3 a.m. to bring him clean clothes. So this is an issue, but the one in the hospital was not. Commenter, did he want the baby too? Did he understand what having a child means to his boundaries and lifestyle? Opie says, yep. Before we had baby, my parents had a long talk about it with him. He said he did, and he would make the logical decision. We've talked about it. How sleep, routine, free time, work, etc. goes out the window. We try our best, and even then, how babies are day-to-day changes. I never know how baby will be any given day, so you just do what you can. I thought he understood, but then he reacted like this, and I was just... Commenter says, not the a-hole. Being autistic and having ADHD are not licensed to be a wiener. He is a father now, and the baby's needs come first. Moreover, the reason that you can't help is because you have already bent over backwards and made every single accommodation possible for him. He should be grateful. Instead, he's weaponizing therapy language to make you seem like the bad guy. You are not. Opie says, comment limit prevented a lot of extra, but I keep the house clean, look after our cat, have baby when he works. When he works from home, I keep baby happy and content as I can. So he can work, let him have his weekly game session with his best friend. We hang out with our friends. I often have baby so they can play games. I am just happy to socialize, not a huge board game person. I make sure we have our alone time when baby is happy playing in his play area, feed him and keep him quiet at night so Brad can sleep and so on. What does he do? He cooks, does all of that, lunch, dinner. He will help me with the cleaning, the cat at times. Takes baby so I can nap if I'm tired. Since baby is only breastfeeding, I am with him all night. Thankfully, he sleeps most of the night now, but I'm still up at like 6:30 to 7 a.m. with him. Commenter says, husband should not have had a child. What will he do if something happens to you? OP says, well, my parents would have to fly over from where they live and likely take custody of our son.
Oh, wow.
Husband's parents are too old and in poor health. Mine are not. I'm what?
Maybe she was thinking like if something happens to the husband too?
Unless she misread that. I'm sorry. What will happen if something happens to you? Your husband can't take care of your kid?
And it has to go to one of the parents? I really am hoping that she just misread that because she mentioned his parents too.
OP says, if I passed away or was hospitalized, I know he would try his best with baby, but in the long term, it would be a disaster. He would probably move near his sisters and parents with baby, or my parents would step up a lot.
Okay, so she didn't misread it. She's just with a
why would you have
a-hole.
a baby with someone who you didn't think was capable of taking care of a baby?
That's crazy.
That's
crazy.
She literally has no.
They couldn't have
in
planned
him.
this. They couldn't have planned this, or maybe she just picked the wrong partner.
Yeah, and realized later that he wasn't capable of taking care of a child. There is an update 6 hours later. So he came home, and we had a long, long talk about how his words can be easily misunderstood, especially if he does not clarify to me or I ask him to. How a baby equals no boundary with sleep. We do our best, all we can do. We need to spend more time as a family together. I explained how to a neurotypical person his words and actions hurt, even if that is not his intent. That baby is the priority always, even over our mental health. We only have each other, and even though I can sympathize with the mental health, you just have to push past it. I am doing all I can, and if you need help, ask for it. He's willing to get extra support at the neuropsych where we live beyond what he has. He is medicated and getting all the help he can and will seek ways to cope. I make it clear that in no way was his reaction okay, and it cannot happen again for the baby's sake. He seemed to understand. As some of you suggested, him getting extra support for his ADHD, he will. I will ask also for some counseling on how to communicate better with him. Around the house, he will spend less time alone, more with us. Free time happens after or when baby sleeps, not before. Games can be played in the living room where we are together. Also, my mother offered to be on call if she has the time, so if husband is alone with baby, she can video chat with baby, which he likes. I talk with her on a video almost every day, and sometimes it can snap baby into a better mood when he sees Grammy. And yes, we live in Sweden, so we get 480 days between us. Wow. And we can share and trade, so I can get some days back if it comes to it. I was never forced to give my days. It was my choice due to what was happening at the time. He only works 50% because that is what he feels he can do without burning himself out. He has other health issues, diabetic, EDS, that make him more exhausted. His job pays pretty well, but on just half his wage is not enough. If he can get permanent health insurance, it could take a few years. We hope. I am with him because when I met him, he was under less pressure. He is fully capable, had a job, cleaned his apartment, has a social life. I think the stress of having the health insurance and our son sometimes just being a baby got to him. Prior to this, he had been a good husband, father, considerate. I am not stupid. I was in a harmful relationship prior. My parents love him, just not his behavior at times like now. He messed up with his words. He has acknowledged that. And you should acknowledge that you can listen to full episodes with stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio and search up OK Storytime. And there is a little bit left to this story.
Yeah. I wonder how severe his autism is. Because, I mean, she said he was fully capable. Honestly, I forgot that he was autistic. Yeah. So that does make sense that maybe he doesn't realize how his words are affecting other people.
Oh, absolutely. Like, probably doesn't, you know, like, she said that she wanted to work on how they can communicate better and stuff.
Yeah. I think that was great.
But I would be a lot more worried about the fact that you don't think that your partner can take care of your guys' child on his own.
And yeah, maybe it is just a stress thing. Like, I wonder if she's thinking maybe before all of this stress stuff was happening, he would be able to.
Yeah.
But then now that she's seeing how he's acting, like she's like, nah, it would be bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like there's a chance, but that does definitely still worry me as well.
Very worrisome.
Yeah.
Very worrisome. But there is a little bit left to the story. Some of you thought it might be a deeper issue, but no. I asked, and he just said he was upset because to him I was working at a time he did not agree to. But I had to remind him wanting to go to bed at 11 was recent, as in back in May when I started to go back to work. He's just stressed from work, baby, and day-to-day things. He apologized for how he rejected my hug by standing there. He was annoyed, which is why he didn't reciprocate, and how he worded things last night and this morning. I promised no students past 11:30. He said, of course, he would never let our son just cry if he was going to bed. I had a student and baby was awake. Will it stick? I don't know. We just take one day at a time. Next step is couples counseling as opposed to individual and involving my parents whom he respects. And some of OP's comments. Commenter says, good luck, OP. This is a nice update, and it sounds like you have the resources and communication skills to work through this stressful time. Keep it up, and things will get easier. OP says, I hope so. My parents help as best as they can, 6,000 kilometers away. We have resources here, too, for all of us. Commenter says, diabetes does not cause fatigue unless he is not taking care of himself. Do not let him use that as an excuse. This is coming from a diabetic. OP says, we're trying to manage it now. Has been hard. Have a dietitian, going swimming 1 time a week. All 3 of us. Commenter says, thank you for giving your husband grace. I also have ADHD, and the sleepless nights were awful for me. I was UNDX at the time and really struggled with lack of sleep. I still do. And my husband did the bulk of the night shifts, and I will be eternally grateful for that. I think being bluntly honest with him is good. If he's exhausted, and which new parent isn't, and burned out, then it's going to be harder for him to regulate himself. I'm not excusing his actions at all, but I just wanted to show my appreciation for you, that you are handling his disabilities. I wish you all the best. OP says, he has his own office space. Baby's routine usually means he falls asleep at 8. After 8, free time. Commenter says, do not frame it like this. Remember, the whole post started because of a rigid time mindset. Free time after 8 means he gets to do what he wants, including sleeping. The schedule is baby time until 8, on-call time from 8 to 11:30 p.m. On-call means he can do other things, but must stop those things if baby wakes up. Then 11:30 is sleep time. OP says, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think that's actually a very good comment.
Yeah.
Because you're finding ways to communicate with him better.
Right.
So if you have that kind of more straightforward language of not saying like, oh, free time, whatever you want. It's like, no,
Yeah.
baby still exists. So you're going to have to help out.
Right.
And you can go to sleep at 11:30, sure.
Yeah. Because it is kind of funny. Like we were joking about calling it shifts earlier,
Yeah.
but like it's funny to refer to it like that. But at the same time, it's honestly a good way to describe it as just being on call.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that was good. All the best luck to these people. My wife refuses to be intimate with me, and she won't tell me why.
There's got to be a reason.
My wife, 35 female, and I, 35 male, have been married for 15 years, and we've been together for 20 years. We have 2 kids, 12 and 14. We absolutely adore and work tirelessly to provide the best possible life for them. By the way, this comes from the Machuca. I don't know, man.
Machuca Jr.?
Machuca Jr. Yeah. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. So for the past 3 years, things have been somewhat bumpy. I understand that our kids are at an age where they require a ton of our attention and resources with school, band, club sports, and other extracurriculars. And I'm aware of I'm aware of the physical and emotional toll that can have on marriages. However, for these past 3 years, my wife and I have had very little intimacy and very little spicy sleep, and we've been trying very hard to work on that aspect of our relationship. This past year has been the most difficult and by far the darkest year in our marriage. We didn't talk very much. We essentially became roommates co-parenting our kids under the same roof. It was very depressing and very demoralizing. It was to the point where we began contemplating divorce, and it became very dark and gloomy in the household because of that. We began seeking help with both individualized therapy and couples therapy, and it seems to have helped some. Little by little, we started to get along and started to have deeper conversations about what our marriage looks like and what we would love for it to look like. This is where it gets tough. As time passed, my wife started to tell me that she no longer was in love with me. Oof. And that she only saw me as a best friend.
Rough.
That she only loved me in a very platonic way, and this was one of the main reasons that she didn't have any desire for intimacy and let alone spicy sleep. This was very shocking to me, and quite frankly, I was devastated. I became angry and depressed, and I couldn't fathom the thought that I was no longer wanted or desired by the person I felt completely in love with. Things began to deteriorate again, and not long after, we were back to square one. I sat down with her one afternoon and had a heart-to-heart and began to ask questions about where the root of this problem lies, and her answer was, I don't know. And that I have built up resentment towards you, but I don't know where it stems from. As you can imagine, this provides very little to no insight about how to approach this. Yeah, that sounds very difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
I am puzzled, I'm frustrated, and I do not know what to do at this point. Currently, we've arrived at a place where she says that she has no spicy sleep drive and no desire for intimacy or connection. She says that all she wants is simply companionship, which basically means our co-parenting roommate dynamic. I asked her what I could possibly do or what it is about me that is so unattractive or undesirable, and her response is always, I don't know. She stated that she does love me, but it's not the same. That she has been feeling disconnected for years and that our marriage just takes up too much work. Her focus is only the children for now, and that my co-parenting contributions are meaningful to her in our home. In regard to intimacy and or spicy sleep, she basically told me that it's not something she's interested in or wants at this time. She mentioned that the only way to get to a point for any of that is to be intoxicated, which I believe is incredibly awful and very wrong.
Dang.
I told her I do not think forcing herself to have spicy sleep or being intimate by drinking or smoking is good, and I declined to be a part of that, which, to my surprise, upset her and made her more distant. Interesting.
Y'all need to divorce.
You think?
She doesn't love you like that anymore. And it's hurting you because you're searching for some reason of why she doesn't love you. She doesn't seem to know. Maybe she does know and she's lying.
Yeah.
But either way, it doesn't really matter. She doesn't love you anymore. She's not physically attracted to you anymore.
Yeah.
But it's not much she can do.
Because it kind of sounds like she just doesn't want that at all. So it doesn't even sound like she wants that with another person.
Which, yeah, you know? Sure, might be true.
Yeah.
In either case, it isn't doing OP any good to stay there, and she gets what she wants out of the relationship, which is like a companion, friend, a co-parent. But that's not what OP wants, so you gotta leave her. And that doesn't mean you can't co-parent effectively.
To continue, we're both extremely honest and transparent. We've never cheated on each other, and we are always free to look through each other's phones, emails, socials, etc. And we hardly ever do. I asked her if there was someone else, and she declined. Honestly, I believe her. We then peacefully went through each other's things, and as expected, it was clean. We've always been very forward, even with the hard topics, so I don't smell nor feel any foul play or infidelity. I'd love some outside perspective on this matter and some insight on how to address something like this. It feels so awful to be unwanted and undesired by my own spouse. I hate it. And we do have an update, but man, I feel like, I don't know, I wouldn't jump to divorce just yet. I feel like if they've been married for such a long time, I don't know. I feel like I've just heard that happen with married couples where it's just like, you're together for a long time. Things, maybe sometimes you just, I don't know, maybe you're growing apart in certain ways, or maybe it's just some sort of like, which that can lead to divorce for sure. But I feel like I've heard of it just being a kind of phase in their lives as well.
It totally could be, which is why I think separation would be helpful.
Yeah, maybe.
But it seems like this has been going on for longer than a minute. You know?
Yeah, he said it for like 3 years. It's been happening.
3 years is not just a phase.
Well,
you know, at that point, it's like that she's lost feelings for him.
We haven't heard a lot about like how their therapy has been going. So I'm curious to hear. We do have an update.
Okay.
And a lot more to the story. So let's see how this goes. All right, so on to the update. One of the main things that is the buzzword of this has been the term resentment. And it has been really eating me up inside, knowing my wife keeps telling me she doesn't know why she's resentful or doesn't know why this is affecting her emotionally and mentally. Brought this up with our therapist once again and resurfaced the conversation about being married for so long, 15 years, and being together since we were 14 years old. Oh, wow.
Which, honestly, I think even makes more sense why she's having these feelings. This is the only person that she's ever been with.
Yeah. No,
I mean, that's so common.
Sure.
It's so common for people to be like, wow, you're the only person I've ever been with.
Yeah. They're only 35 and having these questions.
Like, I think this is super common for people who have only ever had one relationship to realize, wow, I really not like settled, but I didn't like explore. I haven't
know
explored
anything else.
I don't know anything about love when you're 14.
Yeah. Our long history of growing up and how having children when she was 19 years old, me 20, significantly changed the trajectory of our lives. We experienced severe poverty and many hardships in the process, and we essentially had zero social life for the past 10 years because we were so busy raising babies. 2 kids now, ages 12 and 14. She followed up with tons of questions directed mostly at my wife about her feelings towards this, and 90% of the responses were very our kids focused. It definitely felt like she was afraid of saying yes, it sucked, because she would feel guilt or shame because it would imply that she regrets the kids. I mentioned this in the session, and the therapist encouraged her to look at this outside of the lens of being a mother and try to view it a bit more selfishly and individually, and it was very eye-opening. My wife mentioned that she was very frustrated with the fact that we did miss out on many things in life. She also was very clear in saying, I do not think I missed out on other partners or dating or partying, but I certainly lost all my friends. This was huge because one of the big pieces that has caused a strain in our lives is how siloed and isolated we've been. Again, busy raising kids.
Yeah.
I followed up by reminding her that it's important to have good friends and to make time for herself and her friendships. For the past 3+ years, we've had multiple conversations about friends and how it is important to have them in life, especially when you have similar peers that can help in many areas of life that perhaps we have no experience navigating, and even simply for enjoyment. It has always been something my wife avoids, even though she's always been someone who needs that external stimuli. The main reason for her not investing in friends or even herself has always been the kids. Like I mentioned earlier in the post, 90% of the answers have to relate to the kids to some degree. At this point in our session, I started to feel like there was a common denominator, the kids, in most of the frustrations and problems that she was experiencing. So I simply asked her, do you think you may be upset at me because I'm responsible for these kids in the sense that we got children so young in life? I wasn't ready, but she said that she was upset at me for that. She also followed up with the fact that she knows that's unreasonable because it takes 2 to tango. I did feel like it was progress because it kind of gave us something to work on and help alleviate some of these burdens. So we agreed to invest more time in nurturing good friendships both together and individually. Towards the end of the session, we began to discuss what actionable items we would take from the session. At this point, it was still all very ambiguous and blurry as to what the outcomes were. I was very direct and very forward in asking my wife what her plan is moving forward. Note, I had decided prior to the session that should my wife say the same thing about being a co-parenting roommate, that I would take the 180 approach and essentially do me. She started basically saying the same thing, that she doesn't have any desire to be intimate or spicy related with me as of now, and that she loves me immensely and she feels bad for not being there for me, as mentioned in my first post. I also brought up the brief swinging that happened, to which, for the 50th time, she said it wasn't a problem. I agree with her on this. That was something that was a mechanical approach for a solution to a problem that was very much in existence when we tried this. We both really have no issue to this. We know it happened, we tried it, and mutually stopped and turned the page. I also brought up other life events that may cause resentment, and really, we ended up not getting anywhere else as far as the route for resentment, which was discouraging. I then basically expressed to my wife that I will not be okay with that arrangement. I told her that I've really done everything I can and that this issue really has reached a point where it has nothing to do with me or require me to do anything that I am currently not doing. I was very direct in saying that I will not be accepting this dynamic and that I need to be with someone who is actively involved in our marriage, works towards resolutions, and is very much interested in maintaining an active intimacy and spicy related relationship. However, I made it clear that if this dynamic continues, that divorce will be the only outcome. Of course, tears were involved, and it was a very bleak and sad ending to the session. Still, nothing was said, and I walked out very discouraged and very determined to start working on the 180 as soon as we left the room. It's painful and very difficult because much of the 180 requires you to be very short and cold and transactional. The saddest part is realizing this dynamic already is very cold and transactional. Here is where it gets very interesting.
Ooh.
I started working on implementing many of the 180 recommendations that same day. I mentioned to my wife that, hey, things are going to be a bit different moving forward. I'm going to honor her roommate co-parenting dynamic without reproach, and that it should be no mistake that I am not happy here, and I'm never going to be okay with it, but I am done working on it if she wasn't going to work on it. She agreed and went to bed. I started to build distance and started to basically focus on myself, very short and transactional. She asked for help on some of her personal things, to which I declined, and it really shocked her. She was upset, saying that I was being petulant. I explained to her that she is now fully in charge of her own life and her own issues. We didn't talk all day, and we only spoke when necessary. Few days I keep this going, and she's very visibly upset and stressed. I typically react to that with gestures of help or nurturing, but I didn't this time. That night, she was crying, telling me that she's stressed and she thinks something is wrong with me because I'm, quote, indifferent. I simply listened. Then I told her that this is the dynamic that she proposed and that I'm simply, much like her, taking care of myself and focusing on myself. I'm not going to lie, it has been very hard to be cold and distant because, as I mentioned before, I love her and I wish I could hold her and love on her. However, I know this is somewhat manipulative in a way just to get her way and still keep me in the friend zone. So I've been staying the course. We're not going on a week of this 180, and let's just say there have been many changes on her side. I think she's starting to realize that there is more to me than just friends and co-parenting. I sent her a text a few days ago essentially itemizing bills and separating the financial responsibilities 50-50. And she lost her crap. She basically told me it was out of left field, to which I responded, hey, friends go in 50-50, and as your friend, I expect nothing less. And yeah, especially if they're going to be co-parents too. That would be what that is.
I don't know if I like this.
Yeah? What are you thinking?
It just feels like a roundabout way of separating.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of his idea.
But
It's
I'm like, why are we, it does feel kind of, like, I don't want to say that it's all on him because it absolutely is not.
Yeah.
Like, she is definitely, absolutely in the wrong here.
Uh-huh.
But it does feel kind of petulant. Instead of being like, hey, because you want this dynamic, from now on, this is how it's going to be. Let's go down. Like, we're going to be splitting things 50-50.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be helping you on things because, like, having that conversation like an adult.
Beforehand, maybe. Yeah,
it
that
just feels like he's
help.
like, oh, nah, you want my help?
Yeah.
I'm just a friend. I can't help you. Maybe if I were your husband, I could. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe a conversation about this stuff before he's doing this would definitely help.
Yeah.
But I don't think that this approach is I feel like the approach is definitely it doesn't feel like the worst idea to me. But definitely with the conversation.
I'm like,
feels like petty.
Just separate. Just divorce.
This was very eye-opening because it gave me a glimpse of how I'm really taken for granted and how her level of comfort and convenience at my expense is really overlooked. Pushed through anyways, and basically told her that this is the new dynamic she asked for and that it's still a bargain because she would have to be 100% if it was on her own. I've noticed that she's making more time for herself aside from being a mom, which is huge because she pretty much neglected herself for years.
That is great, actually.
I'm very pleased seeing her be more herself. My hope is that as we work on ourselves, the marriage improves. There really is no telling at this point where this will go. We are very much cordial and amicable, even to this day, and that's a very good sign. Boundaries are set and expectations are very clear, and I feel that no matter the outcome, I will be at peace with everything that has been done. We're still going to continue the couples therapist until we either rekindle our marriage or end up in divorce. I feel like having this non-biased third party really helps as a witness and as a guide through this. Thank you all for the kind words and recommendations and feedback. This will be my last post on this topic, and I wish you all the best. And there is another update.
Definitely not the last post because this is a long story.
Yeah, we're exactly halfway through this story. I don't know. I still have hope for this, honestly.
And you have so much hope.
I have so much hope. Because listen, it's like,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, early on in relationships, even just like a few years in, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's harder to get through things like this. But I've not been married. I haven't been with anyone for 20 years.
Sure.
And I know they're super young, but like, I feel like problems I've heard from married people, if I was going through that, I'd be like, bye, done. But then again, these married, it's different for them.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because
they've been
they're
together for
married.
so long.
Yeah, and they've been together for so long. And I feel like she has it. I feeling like she's got individual problems, and then she discussed, you know, like not having friends and like and that being a thing. Like maybe she is just tired of being around him 24/7.
I think that nothing will change until she figures out who she is. She's been with him since she was 14.
Yeah, very young.
She had kids at 19.
Mm-hmm.
She has never had a chance to figure out who she is as an individual.
Right.
Because from 14 to like 20, you know, I would probably
They're 35 now.
25 or like 28 is when you figure out who you are.
Yeah.
That is prime.
It's a
Like,
big part
what
of
is
it.
my personality?
Right.
What do I want to do? Who do I want to be?
Right.
She has not had that time.
We have a whole half
Yeah.
left of this story.
Guys,
So
we got a lot of story left.
very curious how they figure this out. So update number 2. I debated for a long time on whether to submit an update on this matter. A few significant changes have taken place, and I felt it would be good to not only share with you, but also to allow myself to process all of this in a uniform way. We were almost 9 weeks in on the 180 method I mentioned I was starting, and it started to render some positive reactions from my wife. I explained in the previous posts that she started to notice things that she previously took for granted, started to ask more about my whereabouts, and also started to notice that I would go out with the kids more often without her, and she started to invite herself, which I didn't decline. So much has changed, and it has changed for what seems to be for the better. This past Memorial Day weekend, my wife asked me if I wanted to go out for coffee because she wanted to talk to me about something. This was huge because I can't recall when the last time my wife asked to talk to me about something important. I must admit, I was very nervous and worried about what this could be about, and my mind was racing with the plethora of scenarios of what it could possibly be. Of course, I agreed, and we took some time away from the kids to have this conversation at a local coffee shop. The talk was very constructive in nature. There was a ton of insightful information about herself that helped me further understand where she is in life, both emotionally and mentally. We summarized what the core issues we are encountering are, and she asked me for help. This is new, and I cannot tell you how excited I was hearing something so sincere coming from my wife, who for the last 2+ years has been absent. So after she was through sharing all her thoughts, I proposed a plan that I felt was right for us. This is something that I had been thinking about these last few weeks, and I was planning on bringing this up in a few months if I noticed that things were not changing for the better. This date felt like the right place to share it since it goes hand in hand with what she talked about, and it also relates to the help that she was asking me for. I started by first acknowledging her feelings and concerns. I told her that they are valid and how she feels is personal to her, and that I care that she feels this way because I don't like the thought of her being sad or depressed. I also told her that my goal still is and will always be for us to reconcile and be the happily ever after we vowed to be for each other, and that my love for her is as strong, if not stronger, as it was the day we said I do. I continued the conversation by telling her how I felt about the whole situation, read my previous posts for details, and how it affects me every day. I also clarified some things that she mentioned as she was feeling, because how I have been very distant and monotone, which transactional lately. I explained to her that I was very much trying to protect my feelings and emotions from the rejection and neglect, that it wasn't personal, and that it was simply me safeguarding myself because I cannot control her. I can only control myself. This was a perfect segue to the core of this approach, which is focused on self-accountability. I told her that for the longest time, I was always working hard to make her happy and do things that I knew she enjoyed or wanted. However, I was always met with rejection and disappointment because which caused a load of stress on me. I explained to her that I had to make a change for myself. After all, I can only control myself and make the changes that I want for myself. I mentioned how I was starting to implement new habits and routines that will help edify me, all while still executing all of our shared responsibilities, including parenting, finances, and daily living activities. I explained that the goal is to continue to improve myself both as a husband and a father, learn more, and be healthier, amongst other things.
See, this is what I love.
This is great.
This is the improvement
Yeah.
that they need. Like, focus on yourselves.
Exactly. I totally agree. She was very receptive to this. She told me that she sees what I'm doing and that she is proud of the changes she has seen. She also told me that she's starting to realize that she feels left behind and that much of the things that have affected her negatively are her own fault. Towards the end of the conversation, which was about 3 hours, there was a very high spirit of reconciliation in the room. I told her that my goal is to ultimately make this work. However, I was very clear that I was not going to live under the current circumstances. I told her that my heart wants her to be happy, even if it means elsewhere, and that I also deserve to be my happy self.
Yes.
I also explained that I do not want our children to grow up thinking that this was okay or normal because they deserve better as well. She told me that she doesn't either. She told me she doesn't know what to do, to which I replied, let's set some clear goals. However, the goals will be for ourselves, not for each other. So here's what we established. We are in charge of our own happiness. The key here is that she's not responsible for making me happy and vice versa. We both need to seek what that personal plan looks like individually. Also, we're both encouraged to include each other in taking those steps if we want, but it's not required. We are in control of our own individual lives and our own journey. This means that we're both responsible in finding the resources necessary to grow, change, and heal. We can definitely help one another when help is requested. However, unsolicited advice or help will not be rendered. We are responsible for communicating. This ensures nothing is left unsaid. If it was never brought up or discussed, it never happened. We're not mind readers, and we need to take ownership when we fail to communicate. I wonder what his job is, because this all feels very like this feels like legal jargon that we're
been in therapy for 2 years, so they probably have like the therapy books memorized.
Right. Make a list of needs and wants. This gives us both clear direction about meeting each other's needs. This also gives us a choice as to what we want or choose to do, compromise on, or decline to do. This list also will not serve as a checklist for accountability. We made it clear that we would not be bringing this list up for the purpose of arguing, and it was up to the other person to use the list as a tool for growth, transparency, or clarification. We concluded that it was up to us to decide if we will be happy doing these things for ourselves because we care, not to simply check a box. This was very important in order to establish long-term habits and not short-term band-aids, because you cannot make someone change or do something that they do not believe is important. Yeah, they've definitely been to therapy a long time. This is crazy. Yeah. We will also establish a deadline, Memorial Day 2025. Whoa. At the end of the conversation, we concluded by setting Memorial Day 2025 as a hard stop to evaluate our lives and our progress. We agreed that we would do this with the clear understanding that we will independently decide if we are happy here. If we determined we aren't happy, we will be getting a divorce. We would also both assume full responsibility for what happened should we get divorced. For example, if needs were not met, it would mean my partner chose not to meet them. This places full responsibility on each other in all areas. The whole process requires that if needs were not met, the next question should be, did we do everything to address this issue? If yes, then we will have a clear conscience of what transpired and know that we left no stone unturned. If, however, we didn't do everything to address the issue, it will mean the issue was not important enough for you or didn't care to meet those needs. This goes both ways in all areas, like everything else. We established that the main motivator for change should be ourselves, and that if we did that, we would in turn begin to see beneficial changes towards each other. The goal is to ensure that everything we are doing for one another to meet each other's needs is being done because we want to do it for our spouse, not because he or she asked. Instead, it was done because I know it makes him or her happy, and I love seeing them happy. I felt it was important to mention to her that we are no longer required to do anything for each other. It is now more of a I want to do these things for each other. Ultimately, I felt the conversation was very positive and productive. Many tears were shed and lots of hugging ensued. I know this doesn't mean or guarantee anything. However, this has never happened before, and I can honestly attribute it to the 180 method. I cannot give any more insight on this method other than it's the only thing that I did different and something new happened for what seems to be the better. I've decided I will conclude and will refrain from this method moving forward as the plan now has changed. I'm planning to devote myself entirely to not only myself and my growth, but to also work on her needs and wants because I want her to be happy by my side. She said and agreed that she would do the same for herself. We agreed that we would help and build each other wherever we request for it, and that we will be approaching this as a team. And I hope that you approach your favorite podcast app, whether it's Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, whatever you choose, and search OK Storytime, because you are going to find full episodes with more stories just like this one. Wow, and there is a little bit more to this story, but dang, man.
Memorial Day 2025 has passed.
Yeah.
Are they together?
I'm so curious.
Is there an update? Do you think they are?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm like,
Because listen,
yeah.
I'm not weeding out divorce.
No, yeah.
It's possible.
You just want them to do everything possible
Exactly.
to prevent. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
And
It
that's
seems
fair.
like they're working on it.
I agree.
So
I, again, unfortunately, do think that they're doing a great job
yeah.
at being co-parents.
Yeah.
They are doing everything that they can to be effective, you know, in maintaining any sort of relationship.
Yeah.
Like, this is great to do in general.
Right.
But we literally haven't had any conversation about whether or not she's
like
still
emotions
or any change in the conversation of, you know, emotions. And that's that was his thing. He said, "You don't love me. You don't want to sleep with me.
Yeah.
I want those things, and if we are at an impasse, then you know, you can't. There's only so much you can fix in a relationship if you don't have those two things,
those feelings,
especially when that's what he wants."
We do have a little bit more to the story, so I hope we get an answer.
Yeah.
So, as of today, some of the biggest changes I have noticed are her commitment to therapy and mental health. She is taking some antidepressants that are helping her. She is also more confident and in a far better mood more frequently. We have started to explore more ways of intimacy in multiple areas, such as physical touch and words of affirmation. Spicy sleep is starting to make an appearance, which is exciting. Side note, spicy sleep was very, very awkward to start when you've been absent for so long. I can imagine.
Yeah.
We've also started to work out together, which is great, and have lost weight, which is also very exciting. Overall, communication has improved, and I cannot wait to see where this leads. I hope this helps someone out there. I'm still very much interested in your feedback and thoughts on this. You all have been a huge help in giving me hope and insight in this tough journey. Trolls aside, many of you have really been instrumental in my journey, both emotionally and mentally. I will not be providing any more updates until Memorial Day next year. I think it's now time to keep focusing on myself and start working on all the new opportunities that hopefully will arise with my wife. I wish you all the best in your life and your relationships with those you love.
Okay.
Keon, please tell me there's an update.
Please.
So,
is there?
we get something from OP.
Okay.
It says, marriage update coming summer 2025.
Stop it! Stop it!
It is summer 2025.
I know. I looked into it. It's a little short thing. I'm going to read it.
Okay,
Oh my gosh.
okay.
Oh my gosh.
Read it.
I've received many messages asking about an update on how my marriage is going.
Okay.
I'm planning on releasing a final post about this topic in the summer.
I hate you.
Oh my gosh.
Wait,
Oh, okay. Maybe I don't hate you.
I'll need to figure out what subs to post on, considering some have blocked my updates in the past. Feel free to recommend where they
Post it on
where to
OK
cross post.
Storytime.
Yes.
Yes, please.
This is the final tidbit. Thank you for all your kind words of hope and encouragement. I want to encourage you as well to keep fighting for your marriages.
Okay.
Talk soon.
Yes! Oh my
Freaking
gosh.
like little like movie trailer.
No, literally. This
Okay, so it seems
Wow.
like he's still working on
is
it.
still working on it.
Which
And maybe he
great.
recommends. Yeah.
I will say it seems like there's been some improvement, especially because they're adding intimacy in different forms
Yeah.
back into their relationship.
Yeah.
So that is a change. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like she has some sort of attraction, whereas before it seemed like she had none.
Right.
Opie does not give up.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know,
props to OP, man.
definitely commend you for that.
For sure.
Maybe that will, be successful.
Yeah.